Good morning. We would like to welcome all of you to our virtual press conference today to discuss the FDA's draft recommendations to assess blood donor eligibility using gender-inclusive individual risk-based questions to reduce the risk of transfusion-transmitted HIV. First, we will hear from FDA Commissioner Dr. Robert Califf, and then from Dr. Peter Marks, Director of the FDA's Center for Biologics Evaluation and Research. Following their remarks, we will allow time for questions from the media. With that, I'll turn it over to Dr. Califf.
There we go. Just getting my video to work here. Hang on just a second. Yeah, here we go. Now we're all set. Good morning, and thank all of you for joining. As you all know, maintaining a safe and adequate supply of blood and blood products in the U.S. is paramount for the FDA. Whether it's for someone involved in a car accident or an individual with a life-threatening illness, blood donations save lives every day. We're committed to following the best available science to inform and revise our policies, to increase those eligible to donate blood, and to maintain appropriate safeguards to protect the recipients of blood products. Over the years, this data-driven process has enabled us to revise our policies, thereby increasing those eligible to donate blood and maintaining appropriate safeguards to protect recipients. When we revised our blood donation policies in 2020 to address the unprecedented challenges presented by the COVID-19 pandemic to the U.S. blood supply, we restated our commitment to further investigate individual risk assessment as an alternative to time-based deferrals for men who have sex with men. The agency has proactively reviewed and considered the best available scientific data, including ongoing surveillance of the U.S. blood supply and data from other countries such as the UK and Canada, both of which have similar HIV epidemiology to the U.S. and have already instituted this approach. Today, the agency is recommending the elimination of time-based deferrals for certain populations at increased risk for HIV transmission. Instead, the agency recommends assessing donor eligibility using gender-inclusive, individual risk-based questions relevant to HIV risk. Based on the available data, the agency believes the implementation of the proposed individual risk-based questions will not compromise the safety or the availability of the U.S. blood supply. Our approach to this work has always been and will continue to be based on the best available science. Thank you, and with that, I will now turn it over to Dr. Marks to provide more details on the proposed policy.
Thank you, Dr. Califf. It's a pleasure to join all of you today for this announcement. As Dr. Califf mentioned, maintaining an adequate and safe blood supply is vital to public health. The agency takes seriously its responsibility for ensuring the safety of the blood supply, as well as for protecting the health of both the donor and the recipient. Today's draft recommendations provide an opportunity to expand donor eligibility while still upholding these responsibilities and minimizing the risk of transmitting infectious diseases. The new approach proposes that the current donor history questionnaire be revised to ask all prospective donors, regardless of their gender, about new or multiple sexual partners in the past 3 months. Prospective donors who report having a new partner or more than one partner in the past 3 months would then be asked about a history of anal sex in the past 3 months. All prospective donors, regardless of their gender identifications, who report having a new partner or more than one partner and anal sex in the past 3 months would be deferred from donation. Any individual who has ever had a positive test for HIV or who has taken any medication to treat HIV infection would continue to be deferred permanently. Additionally, under the proposed policy, individuals taking medications to prevent HIV infection, such as pre-exposure prophylaxis, also known as PrEP, or post-exposure prophylaxis, or PEP, would be deferred. More specifically, those taking oral PrEP would be deferred for 3 months from their most recent dose, and those taking injectable PrEP to prevent HIV infection would be deferred for 2 years from their most recent injection. We note that some blood establishments currently have deferral policies related to the use of medications to prevent HIV infections. We're recommending this deferral as the available data demonstrate that the use of these medications may delay detection of HIV by licensed screening tests for blood donations, potentially resulting in false negative results. However, this doesn't mean that individuals should stop taking these medications to donate blood. We recognize that while these draft recommendations, when finalized, will potentially increase the number of individuals eligible to donate blood, some individuals will still be deferred from donating. And that said, the FDA will continue to track the latest data relevant to PrEP and blood donation. To inform these recommendations, the agency carefully reviewed numerous data sources, as Dr. Califf mentioned earlier, as well as surveillance information obtained from the transfusion-transmissible infections monitoring system and the performance characteristics of nucleic acid testing for HIV. Additionally, the agency funded the Assessing Donor Variability and New Concepts in Eligibility study, also known as the ADVANCE study. The study examined several HIV risk factors, such as anal sex and rates of HIV infection and PrEP and PEP use among MSM study participants. Aside from what I mentioned, we are not proposing changing donor deferral time periods for other HIV risk factors, including for individuals who have exchanged sex for money or who have a history of non-prescription injection drug use. Importantly, this approach will not change the testing policies and procedures that are required of blood establishments. Blood establishments are still required to test all donations for certain relevant transfusion-transmitted infections, including HIV and hepatitis B and C viruses. We believe that this new gender-inclusive and individual risk-based approach will be able to maintain the current high level of safety of the U.S. blood supply. As part of established processes, today's proposal will be open for public comment for 60 days. The FDA will then review and consider all comments before finalizing this guidance, which would then be implemented by the nation's blood collection establishments through an updated donor history questionnaire. We're committed to reviewing and considering all public comments and finalizing this draft guidance as quickly as possible, and we will continue to follow the best available scientific evidence to inform and revise our policies to safeguard the U.S. blood supply. Thank you, and now I'll turn the press conference back over to our moderator.
Thank you, Dr. Califf and Dr. Marks. We'll now move to the question and answer portion of the call. As a reminder, if you have a question, please raise your hand via the participant panel. When you are selected, please unmute your mic and turn on your camera. Our first question comes from Catherine Foley at Politico. Please remember to turn on your camera and unmute your microphone.
Hi, everyone. Thank you so much for taking my question today. I'm wondering if you can clarify any further the timeline you have for finalizing this draft guidance. I understand there's a 60-day comment period, and I'm wondering if you all anticipate being able to finalize this guidance within 30 days after that. Thank you.
So thanks very much for that question. I think we will work to move to address any comments that come regarding this guidance as quickly as we can. We will do that actually in real time as they come in. And we hope that it's a matter of weeks between when we have the closure of the comment period and when we are able to start the clearance process for the finalized guidance. We at FDA, though, are not the only ones that are involved in that. And so some of this will be dependent on that clearance process after we're done with this. But I think there's a fair amount of commitment here to moving this through the process as quickly as possible.
And of course, I would just add, we don't know what the questions will be yet, and comments, so we'll have to see.
Our next question comes from Matt Tracy of Gay City News. Please remember to turn on your camera and unmute your mic.
All right, thank you. I just have one quick question. So if you have had vaginal sex with a new partner in the last 3 months, you are eligible to donate but if you have had anal sex with a new partner in the last 3 months, you are not eligible. Is that a correct interpretation of this new guidance?
That is a correct interpretation, and that has to do with the risk of exchanging blood that goes with vaginal intercourse versus anal intercourse, whether it's a man or a woman. It's gender inclusive essentially, because anal sex is associated with a higher risk of exchange of blood.
Thank you.
Our next question is from Bennett Nirapal of Washington Post. Bennett, please unmute your microphone and turn on your camera. There we go.
Whoop, you're on mute.
Maybe some kind of double mute.
Okay, how about now? Can you hear me?
Wonderful, we got you.
Okay, thank you. And then please leave time for me to ask a follow-up question. The tension you're running into here is that gay men across America are being told to get on PrEP, to practice safe sex to drastically avoid the risk of contracting HIV. They're also being told that you're unsuitable to donate blood if you're on PrEP. I understand the screening issue here, but why are people who are on PrEP doing the things that public health tell them that they need to be doing to functionally eliminate the risk of contracting HIV still being treated here as if they're at high risk for giving blood that has HIV in it?
So this is simply a matter of following the data that we have at this time, which is that we know that people who take PrEP, at least at this point with our knowledge of PrEP, that if you look at the population overall taking PrEP, there's a certain risk currently of contracting HIV. It's about 1 in 100 person years with current PrEP regimens, about 1 in 100 or 0.5 in 100, depending on which PrEP regimen. And so that's for all comers. So until we can better sort out who is of lower risk in that group taking PrEP, we need to put this donor deferral in place for PrEP. That's not to say that we won't continue to look at this and try to refine things further. It's just that ultimately, as we move forward, we have to maintain the current safety of the blood supply. And moving forward, as we're doing now, this may not be the final resting place of where we end up, but it allows us to move forward and to at least make a leap forward to allow some men who are not taking PrEP to donate. And the advanced study, by the way, showed that there is a significant fraction of men who have sex only with one partner who should be able to donate.
Are you going to release the findings of the advanced study?
Absolutely. In fact, they were done by a combination of academics, blood collectors, and advocacy organizations. Those will be published. And in fact, I suspect there will be several publications of those findings over the coming months.
And you said you're following the data here, but I'm confused about the fixation on anal sex regardless of gender. Because I mean, if we look at the data, it's being on the receiving side that has the higher risk. If you actually look at the transmission risk for being the insertive partner, that's on par with the vaginal transmission. So why is there so much of a focus on anal sex when it comes to women when we've just not heard public health really emphasize that as a major source of HIV transmission?
So there are certain things that we have to do right now from practical perspectives. In our blood donor rooms, it gets very complicated if we have to worry about insertive and receptive anal sex. At some point, we may be able to get there, but right now, I think, again, this is a first step in the right direction. And I think trying to sort out the risks here and trying to make sure that we don't increase risk by having things clear will be challenging. This is a great first step, I think, in getting in the right direction. Dr. Califf, do you want to add anything on that?
I think you covered it well. We have to go where we have the data and keep the blood supply safe at the same time. It's a tough balance, and I think we're moving, as you say, in the right direction.
Thanks.
Thank you, Dr. Marks and Dr. Califf. Our next question comes from Alex Tin at CBS News.
Hi, thanks for taking my question. Sort of following on the previous two questions, what is the data that prevents you from considering narrower criteria like heterosexual couples or protected sex? Why were those things that you couldn't caveat here?
So thanks. Great question. Unfortunately, condom use is something that is less than perfect, but even when used properly, unfortunately, because of the nature of anal intercourse, the condom failure rate is about 1%, 1 to 2% in some studies. And so protected intercourse is, at least at this point in time, from what we have in terms of data, it does not meet the standard for what will help us feel comfortable that we're preventing the risk of transmission. So that's the issue there. We've tried to look at the various permutations of what we could do, and that's what the advanced study did. And at this point, the simplest thing that we could implement, which has been implemented in Canada and the United Kingdom. So this policy now is fully consistent with the deferrals in Canada and England. In England and in Canada, I think the deferral for PrEP use is a month long or 4 months. But regardless, we're very consistent now with other countries who have moved forward and advanced their policies.
Our next question comes from Danny Al-Farouk at RAPS. Please remember to turn on your camera and unmute your microphone.
Thank you, Dr. Califf and Dr. Marks. I wanted to ask, have you guys done any, I'm guessing it's in the advanced study report. Could you talk about how the risk factor changes with the recommendation that you're making and how risk for HIV infections compared to other TTIs if you make this change?
So I think we're making this change because we believe that there will be no change to risk in the blood supply in terms of HIV, hepatitis B, or hepatitis C. Otherwise, we wouldn't be able to, with a straight face, sit here and make that change because we have to maintain a very safe blood supply. Blood is used every day, not just for those getting chemotherapy, not just for those who have certain hereditary disorders, but also for surgery. So blood supply has to be safe so everyone feels safe getting a unit of blood if they, God forbid, get in a car accident or something else. So we are taking this action because we feel confident from the data we see from the advanced study, from the data we have from the performance characteristics of our current testing methodologies and our surveillance data from the previous changes we made, all those things combined, that we feel confident that the safety of the blood supply will be maintained. We are willing to look in the future to see if there are additional enhancements, advancements we can make to allow more individuals to donate, but we have to have the science in order to be able to do that. And I think we've shown a pretty good commitment over the past few years to continuing to push forward the science to allow us to advance the policies.
Our next question comes from Liz White at the Wall Street Journal. Liz, please make sure to turn your camera on and unmute your microphone.
Hi, yeah, I was just interested if there are concrete plans to fund another study to look at PrEP use or, any kinds of encouragement for a more sensitive test to be developed or something like that, if that's the hang up for the expanding the eligibility.
So there's discussion, but no concrete plans at this point. And I think probably we'll hear a variety of comments that will come in during the comment period that we'll consider that may speak to those things in terms of suggestions for studies. I wouldn't be surprised. We had the previous comment periods as we've advanced guidances.
Yeah, I would just add, I mean, I think it's fair to say that as this is implemented, we're going to want to continue to monitor the risk, but also, as Peter has already said, go to the next set of questions that need to be answered in the field. So the design of that would depend, as Peter said, on sort of the settling out of all the questions that we get about this phase. And as for testing, I don't think the industry is slowing down at all in trying to make better tests and to understand better the differences in risk according to timing of infection, which has been a really tough issue in this field.
Thank you, Dr. Califf and Dr. Marks. Our next question comes from Rennie Lewis at NBC News. Rennie, please unmute your microphone and turn your camera on. Rennie, we need your camera and your microphone. Okay. We're going to have to move to the next question. Our next question comes from Lisa DeGroot from Inside Health Policy. Lisa, please unmute your microphone and turn your camera on.
Hi, thank you for taking my question. I wanted to ask about how you anticipate to help blood establishments kind of on the ground implement these new requirements, and if you anticipate any challenges with establishments being able to meet their new requirements.
Thanks so much for that question. So there is obviously, once these are draft recommendations, once they go final, they will need to be implemented in the donor history questionnaire, which in many places is an electronic questionnaire. So we are hoping, as we go through this comment period, to work with the blood collectors to get them primed to start making the modifications necessary to move to this individual risk assessment. And we've already started that outreach, and we've had very good receptivity. I think the blood collectors, the major blood collectors, many of them were involved in the ADVANCE study, and so they are ready and waiting to start to be ready to make these changes. I would not anticipate the same type of delay that we saw after our change from the indefinite to the 12-month deferral, which took some time in some cases with this change. I hope that this is only a very minimal, if any, delay from when the guidance goes final to when people are able to donate.
Okay, and our final question comes from Rennie Lewis of NBC News. Rennie, it looks like you're still muted.
I wonder if Rennie can use the
chat the question. There we go. Still in mute. Just unmute.
There we go. Sorry, I'm using someone else's Zoom link, so I didn't know it was me. My main question is, I'm Joe Pryor with NBC News. Just what's the main message that you hope this policy change sends?
So I'd like it to send the message that we are moving now to an inclusive policy for blood donation that's as inclusive as it can be, that we will continue to work to try to make sure that we have policies that allow everyone who wants to donate blood to be able to donate blood within what the science allows to make sure that the blood supply remains safe. And so I think this is a really a significant step forward. It puts us in line with the other countries in the world that have moved to the most inclusive policies that could be supported by the available science.
And I'd just add, donating blood is one of several really important symbolic methods of demonstrating one's caring for other people. So we want to make that available to everyone possible in the context of a safe blood supply, since, as we all know, blood is life-saving and essential, and almost all of us will need blood products at one time or another as we go through life.
Thank you for joining us here today and participating in this press conference. We invite you to visit our website at fda.gov for more information about the authorizations. This concludes today's FDA press conference. A replay will be available on the FDA's YouTube page. If you have follow-up questions, please don't hesitate to contact the FDA press office at fdaoma@fda.hhs.gov. Thank you and have a great day.